neuroplasticity at work, he could see the changes in her brain from doing brain training. I don't know if we can just stop if we have to get to the end of Rich.
Go to the next slide.
Technical difficulties. I don't know if we have to go through that whole thing though. Get to the next slide. Tina, the lady that was in this little film, came to our center. She had an hour drive one way. She lives in Denver, I live in Colorado Springs. She drove an hour to LearningRx just because she said this is the first thing that has helped me. She had some strong skills left. When your patient looks bright and they're smart, you know there's a lot in there. That's usually their logic and reasoning is carrying the day. But her visual processing was so weak, she would not know when she missed the exit to come to our center. Her processing speed, we were able to double from the 50th percentile to the 99th. She was starting with a 2% short-term memory. We're going to look at her results here in a minute. I think it might have to go through the data and get to them. Okay, while you're doing technical, maybe even if you have to just get to the little thing again. Did everybody get one of these handouts? Anybody not? Just so I can tell you about these two actual people. The top profile, it says accident victim. This gentleman was in a car accident. He was, like it says, mid-30s or early 30s. These results, he began our program about 7 weeks after his accident. 6 of those weeks, he was in a coma. The dark areas represent percentiles of improvement. He probably still had a long way to go when you know that 50 percentile is average, but he was doing 2 outpatient speech therapy or inpatient speech therapy sessions a week. His mom came from out of state and she said, we've got to have a whole lot more, we've got to jump start. And so following coma, he got those kind of results. The ones at the bottom are just amazing. Particularly I draw your attention to the short-term memory. These are actual results of a soldier, and the one that it's just incredible. His short-term memory went from 8% to 85%. His wife says, I've got my husband back. I've had, at the outset of the program, I've had soldiers say, I'll just ask them a general question about their memory. And he said, well, we drove by the theater the other night, and he said, hey, honey, that sounds like a good movie. We ought to go see that. She said, honey, we saw that last week. Their memories are so impaired. Usually from the kind of traumatic brain injuries that we've been seeing, memory is one of the skills that takes the biggest hit, as well as their processing speed. I'd say that's probably second behind, but it's just amazing to be intense. We see them for an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, 4 or 5 times a week. We get some amazing results. Are we ready to go again? Yeah. This is the lady that I was telling you about. I know that far back in this yellow doesn't show up very much, but short-term memory, she started the 2nd percentile, got up to 55. I think I told you she doubled her processing speed. When I first met this lady, to have a conversation with her today that takes 10 minutes to exchange information, rambled and went around the barn and around the block and back, was a 2-hour, I kid you not, a 2.5-hour conversation as she word searched, as her processing speed was slow, as she tried to organize logic and reasoning what she wanted to speak to me about. So it makes an incredible difference in how they function. Oops, we're going the wrong way. From the Brain Injury Association of America, I'm sure you're all familiar with. Here's their position statement in November of '06. Cognitive, some people say, isn't this new? And we already do our kinds of therapies. No, I want to give you a new set of eyes to think cognitive therapy, brain retraining, cognitive retraining. They're called different names, but that's exactly what we do at LearningRx. Benefits have been discussed in more than 700 published research studies. The Cognitive Rehab Task Force from the American Congress of Rehab Medicine. Again, it's just plain to the last slide. There's substantial body of evidence saying that folks with TBIs or strokes benefit from cognitive rehab. It's time to move beyond the simple questions. Does it work? Is it effective? To looking at precisely some of the factors that control its success. And what we do at LearningRx absolutely plays into this. Adequate treatment must be intense. It must be frequent. The duration must be long enough. Our shortest program is 12 weeks, more typically 15, 18, 24 weeks. We have a long one for folks that are just starting, you know, in the teen percentiles, 10 percentile. Like Tina's was starting at the 2nd percentile short-term memory. She needed our longest program. But to achieve this neurogenesis, the new rebuilding, it's got to be comprehensive. This is one thing about LearningRx. We work on all different skills. There's visual training that somebody might go out, oh, I need some vision training. LearningRx incorporates vision training, working on visual processing, logic and reasoning, long-term memory, short-term memory, processing speed, auditory, I think I mentioned visual processing. You don't just compartmentalize, but if you work on all of these skills and we focus, we'll work harder on their area of deficit. In an hour session, we'll probably do 10 minutes per different activity. But we'll work on the memory, coming in on the visual channel, on the auditory channel, sometimes on their tactile channel, things that they're moving around. But we're just bombarding. They don't get too tired and burn out on an exercise, because in a fast-paced hour, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, and so forth. But you need this, and we were talking to Daniel, sometimes I know you don't see these folks for very long, but please know of us as a resource in the community that here's a next stop that they can go when they are released here. So I wanted to quickly show you our results from, these are some compiled results from my soldiers at Fort Carson. This represents 60 soldiers' results. Cut to the chase, Patty. I don't know if you, yeah, hopefully that blue will show up. Long-term memory, the average of 60 folks measuring on the Woodcock-Johnson, they're starting off at 30 percentile, more than double that. Short-term memory, pretty close to a double, 35 up to 60% plus. Logic and reasoning, usually in these head injuries, is not as impaired. That's what's allowing. Of all the skills, I find that logic and reasoning can kind of cover for some of the other weak areas. If your logic is low, or if your logic is high and memory is low, you can figure out, they're resourceful enough to go in a different door and get the answer a different way if they aren't remembering it. So logic and reasoning usually hasn't taken a hit, but processing speed, so key, and visual processing. I had a gentleman, he said, he was a medic. I mean, he was an officer in the Army and a well-educated man, but with his TBIs, which 4 of them had been loss of consciousness, he said, I cannot get from point A to point B just on my little Army base, you know, just navigating. His visual processing skills were just, he was constantly lost. We can help with all those areas. This is my favorite slide. The heart of the matter, what you do, what counseling does, what speech does, PT, the heart of the matter, I feel, is the cognitive problem. If we can address that, we're well on the road to recovery. This is a quote by Dr. Douglas Cooper. He was a neuropsych. He was presenting to a bunch of folks, but that's what he felt. I know that I've asked some of the people here, if you aren't familiar with the book, The Brain That Changes Itself, excellent resource, inspiring stories. Every single chapter is about another way that neurogenesis, neuroplasticity occurred in a person's brain. So thank you. Rich is going to do a couple of exercises with you.